In 1637, a single tulip bulb sold for more than a house, and nobody even planted it. That's not an exaggeration. In the Dutch Golden Age, a bulb called the Semper Augustus, striped with red and white flames on a yellow base, traded hands for the price of a mansion in Amsterdam. But here's the twist. Most of these bulbs never left the ground. People were buying and selling futures contracts on flowers that hadn't even bloomed yet. It's one of history's clearest examples of how detached from reality a market can become. To understand how this happened, we need to rewind to the 1590s. A virus arrived in the Netherlands, not COVID, but a mosaic virus that infected tulip bulbs. When a tulip got infected, it didn't die. Instead, the petals developed these incredible striped and flame-like patterns. Suddenly, a plain red tulip could transform into something that looked hand-painted. The rarer the pattern, the more exotic it seemed. Exhibit 1, tulips became status symbols. If you had a rare striped variety, you weren't just a rich merchant, you were a refined collector. Wealthy Dutch traders, bankers, and merchants started competing to own the most spectacular specimens. Gardens became galleries. A single bulb could take years to produce a prized flower, so the waiting period itself became part of the appeal. Scarcity plus beauty equals demand. Exhibit 2, the market shifted from owning bulbs to trading them. In the early 1600s, a bulb that produced a rare flower might cost 1,000 guilders, roughly what a skilled craftsman earned in a year. That's expensive, but it's a real thing you can dig up and plant. Then traders started buying and selling bulbs that were still in the ground, or even bulbs that hadn't sprouted yet. You paid money today for a flower you'd see next spring. This is where psychology takes over. When you can't see the product, you're not buying a flower anymore, you're buying the story someone tells you about it. A merchant in Harlem might describe a bulb as extraordinary, and because you trust him, or because you're afraid of missing out, you offer 100 guilders. Someone else offers 150. Suddenly the price doubles, then triples, with nobody ever examining the actual bulb. Exhibit 3, the market migrated to taverns. Instead of formal exchanges like the stock market you might picture today, bulb traders gathered in ordinary drinking houses. A farmer or weaver could walk in with no money and leave with a contract to buy a bulb he'd never seen, betting on its value rising before he had to pay. It was gambling dressed up as horticulture. By 1634, prices spiraled. A bulb called Viceroy, which produced flames of purple and white, reportedly sold for 500 guilders. The Semper Augustus we mentioned earlier? Some records suggest it traded for even more. These weren't the prices of jewels or land. These were the prices of something that lived underground, bloomed for a few weeks, and then died. The fever peaked around 1636 and 1637. Prices hit levels that make no rational sense when you think about what a tulip bulb actually is: a plant that costs almost nothing to grow, produces one flower, and then you dig it up next year and start over. But rationality had left the room. Traders were convinced prices would rise forever. Then spring arrived. When the bulbs actually bloomed, reality hit. Some flowers didn't match the hype. Some buyers showed up expecting to collect their bulbs and discovered the sellers had disappeared or refused to honor the contracts. The tavern traders scattered. Contracts that seemed binding suddenly weren't. The price collapsed. Exhibit 4, there was no apocalypse. This is where Tulip Mania gets misunderstood. Historians used to claim the crash destroyed the Dutch economy. It didn't. Most contracts were never enforced. The legal system basically said, these are just flowers, no court is forcing you to pay. The market evaporated, but the Dutch Golden Age continued. Trade, banking, and real business kept humming. So what actually happened? A scarce, beautiful product triggered human psychology. Fear of missing out, status competition, and herd behavior. People traded on hope and stories rather than fundamentals. When the moment of truth came, when you had to actually own the bulb, the spell broke. The market was never that large. Most ordinary Dutch people never touched a tulip contract. What Tulip Mania really teaches us is simpler than the legend. Markets don't need to destroy an economy to be irrational. Prices can disconnect from value for a while. Scarcity plus emotion plus leverage, betting with borrowed money, creates conditions where normal people make extraordinary decisions. The Dutch didn't learn this lesson once and never repeat it. Every generation discovers it anew, just with different products. The tulip itself survived just fine. Today you can grow them in your garden for a few dollars. They're still beautiful. They still bloom for a few weeks and fade. The only thing that changed was the story people told themselves about what they were worth. And that story, the gap between price and reality, is the real history here. Understanding Tulip Mania isn't about predicting the next crash or picking winners. It's about recognizing the pattern. When scarcity meets emotion, when everyone's talking about rising prices, when the product itself takes a backseat to the story, that's when markets disconnect from reality. The mechanism hasn't changed in 4 centuries. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. If you want to understand how markets actually work, from the inside out, subscribe for new deep dives every week. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.